Hello everyone. Today I want to share a few thoughts about a book that I recently read. It's called Bad Therapy: Why the Kids Aren't Growing Up. This is written by Abigail Shrier. Um, this is such a thought provoking and an eye opening book. This mainly deals with how mental health overdiagnosis is actually harming children and teenagers in the West. So, the context of this book is primarily based in the US. Mm, so, here she mainly talks about how the whole ecosystem, uh, be it mental health therapists, counselors, schools, teachers, parents, parenting coaches, social media, how this whole ecosystem is operating together to push the kids down this path of mental health overdiagnosis. She points out the various aspects um, on how overdiagnosis is harming children, though it is considered as a treatment or a counseling for teens, though it is projected to be the most helpful and most needed solution, but it is also being misused, and the potential consequences she beautifully brings it out. And that is why I feel that this book is, though the context is US, the examples given are from US schools and scenarios, but I think it is equally relevant for parents in India, especially in urban India, where what I see is that there is sort of a playbook that has been followed. This uh, this started sometime in the past, and what we see is that the consequences are noticed now in the West. And if you draw parallels to what is happening here in India, we could see the initial steps of what was done there is being seen and propagated by social media influencers and the so called parenting coaches. So, this is what I feel will be a valuable takeaway, so that as parents we can take corrective actions and not fall into this trap. So, coming to this book, so here she reiterates multiple times that mental health therapy and treatments can be life saving for kids with special needs, kids with severe needs, right? She's not discounting this fact. But at the same time, there are many cases, many scenarios where this is absolutely not required and it is being forced upon children. And we are seeing the consequences where she says that the members of the rising generation today, they are so underprepared to do even basic tasks. And she says that this is the most fearful generation that we have ever come across, because they keep doubting their own abilities, they keep doubting their own sense of agency, they feel that they are powerless, they are dependent on therapists to take even minor decisions. They are very scared to get on with the responsibilities of life and the challenges of life. So, there is also a great sense of reluctance to cross basic milestones like learning to drive a car, or making new friends in college, or taking the right internships. So, these are some of the consequences that we are already noticing. And there is also a sort of treatment dependency, both in terms of medications as well as in terms of therapy, that has been continuing for years. Um, so, from a therapist point of view, this is where author takes up at least 3 4 chapters where she says that the experts operate with the assumption that everybody is a little broken, and everybody has undergone childhood trauma. So, when I was giving this book review with my book club members a couple of weeks back, one person pointed out that I have never heard of this word trauma before, but in the last 3 years, wherever I see this word trauma is being repeated over and over again. So, is it that we are trying to make things which are not traumatic, we are trying to give it a name now and make it seem so traumatic? This is something that we all need to ponder upon. And when the author gives a very beautiful example, she says that while an adult is undergoing therapy, and if he or she feels that the feedback or the assessment given by the therapist is not in line with his perception. Say the therapist says that, oh, your mother might have been very toxic, that's why you are facing all these issues. The adult can make assessment by himself or herself and say, no, my mother was not toxic. This is not the reason. I think you're diagnosing it wrong. That kind of pushback can be done by the adults. Whereas in the case of a child, there is a greater sense of power imbalance between the adult therapist and the child. So whatever the therapist says, there is a very high likelihood that the child might absorb that information without questioning. So because they have less life experience, less exposure, so it is we cannot expect the child to correct the interpretations of the therapist. And the other important point that the author highlights is that for a therapist, treating a schizophrenic or a bipolar patient could be very challenging. Sometimes the sessions can get violent. The appropriate treatment may not be working. So, as you compare this with an adolescent child who is just facing social anxiety issues, and if the parent is willing to pay for the therapy, it is something like easy money for the therapist. So this is sort of the priority that a therapist would think, that it is best to treat the least sick for the longest period of time. That is one of the motivations for the therapist to engage or push the teens down this path of therapy. And there are a lot of side effects or risks associated with this with the therapy for teens. First and foremost, the kid will label themselves as sick. There's something wrong with me. That is the label that they would automatically give. The other thing is that they start to intensify the bad feelings. They start to record each and every bad feeling that they have faced over the week so that they could report it back to the therapist. So they start to place more emphasis on the negative feelings throughout the week and gather all those incidents to report back. And this also, as a side effect, it encourages family estrangement, because some of the things that the therapist might say might cause a rift between the parent and the child. So this is something that we are already seeing um, in the form of social media, the kind of messages that these influencers put out today, that wherever you see this word toxic parenting is being used quite a lot, be it on YouTube, be it on Instagram or Twitter, you see many of these influencers, they talk a lot about toxic parenting, and making this term a more commonly used word. And everybody thinks that, oh, I might have gone through childhood trauma, I might have gone through issues because of my toxic parents, right? So these are the sort of things that are being implanted in the minds of people today. And because of the constant interactions, you would see that there is a lifelong dependency on therapist approval to take even basic decisions. So the author then talks about 10 steps of bad therapy, which is like really eye opening, I felt, where many of the things that the author talks about, it resonates in today's scenario. We are seeing that more and more psychologists and parenting coaches on Instagram, they talk about feelings and emotions. We are giving too much importance to feelings and emotions, and we are asking our children also to give too much importance to their feelings and emotions. So what happens is that this starts to induce rumination, where they are brooding on past injuries, past personal problems, and rehashing the same hurt over and over again. And not only that, the author also talks about, because of these overemphasis on feelings, there is a lot of importance given to accommodating, because the child has been labeled with a certain term. Now there is a lot of accommodation that is being sought after. And as a result, the kids are becoming more and more fearful, and they are also becoming less tolerant of the world. I'm not going to go into the 10 steps, but it's a very important learning for all parents. She also talks about from the point of view of teens. So today, going to a therapist or taking therapy is considered something as an identity. And we are seeing that people, especially teens, they want to associate with these diagnosis labels because they get extra attention and validation on social media. And you can also see that people identify with such diagnosis and they add it to their social media profile. And people, especially those who don't have a diagnosis, they feel left out. um, and that is why you see more and more of these mental issues are becoming normalized, and labels are used, misused, right, left, right, and center today. And kids can use such labels for accommodation on work that they don't want to do, like either asking for extended homework timelines, or increasing the duration of the exam, reducing the difficulty level of the exam. So these are some of the accommodations that are currently being provided. No doubt it is required for children with learning difficulties, but it's very hard to distinguish because of overuse of these labels or misuse of these labels. Coming to the point of view of parents, so this is where you would notice many of the parenting coaches, they provide certain ready-made scripts that sound very therapist style of dialogues, right? um, and we are we are expected to blindly copy those scripts whenever a situation arises, and it sounds so artificial. And for example, the author also mentions one such line where she says, when a child has a lot of, when the child is feeling a lot of emotions, we get down to the level of the eye of the child, and then as parents we say, I see you're having some big feelings. How would you like to express that? Would you like to stomp your feet? Would you like to bang the door? These are some of the scripts that are being discussed on the social media platforms, and we see that this is already there in urban India conversations, isn't it? So it's first and foremost, this doesn't sound like a parent child conversation. It sounds really artificial, really scripted dialogue. It just prevents the parents sense of agency completely. So also as parents we have become more protective, that we are never allowing them to fall or fail. um, and she also talks about how children of today are not learning the consequences of their behavior, especially when they are operating in a collective, in a community, in a society. How to learn to control their impulses, this is not being taught by the parents, and this is not something that is given more value to. So respect for others, knowing the boundaries, especially when you go to somebody else's house. We are, at the end she says that we are creating sensitive children in a curated frictionless environment with no preparation to handle the chaos of the world. So these are some of the issues that she had identified, especially with the latest gentle parenting techniques. um, as a conclusion, what she says is that the parents' primary job is to teach the required values to the children. Kids definitely need adult authority, and they need to learn boundaries from adults. And at the same time, kids need somebody to hold their behavior to highest standards. They need chores, they need discipline, they need structure. And most importantly, as parents, we need to help kids build resilience. Resilience is something that is learned during the childhood, during experiences, as part of the interactions with the world. This is not something that is the current generation is not learning how to build resilience in themselves, and because of which we are seeing various consequences. So this was a short summary of the book Bad Therapy, and I highly recommend that all parents of today do take a look at this book, and it will resonate a lot to what is happening in today's society. If this was valuable, and if you have any feedback or comments to share, please share in the comments below. I've also written a detailed review on my blog about this book. So thank you so much.